How can the Sharks weaponize their cap space this offseason? Today, we're going to be looking at contracts that the Sharks could either get paid to take or grab from teams that are on the cheap. So all that and more on today's episode of Locked On Sharks.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. I'm your host, JD Young, contributor at San Jose Hockey Now, and want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen, proudly a part of the Locked On Network, where we cover your team every day. So if you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just come back tomorrow and check out the podcast again. So today, though, we're going to be looking at ways that the Sharks could potentially weaponize their cap space. And I'm almost calling this like a contract shakedown. So looking at teams that are either really tight against the cap and where the Sharks could either be paid to take on a team that is trying to kind of get out from underneath the contract, or look at guys who are the Sharks could either get for cheap that could potentially help them either this year or down the road, or just guys who don't fit type of situations. So, these I did an episode on Friday about contracts that, looking at potential free agents that the Sharks could sign that actually would help them this year. These guys may or may not help them as much, or this is more about kind of asset management and looking at utilizing your cap space. The Sharks actually have a little bit of cap space this offseason and how to kind of utilize it to the best of their ability. So I don't expect all of these to happen, or maybe even any of these to happen, but just, what smart GMs do, especially on bad teams, is utilize that cap space and try to make other teams pay for their inability to kind of deal with their bad cap. So going to start today by looking at a player in one Anthony Mantha, who is a forward for the get my stuff together here. Forward for the Washington Capitals. He has 1 year left on his $5.7 million deal. The reason why he is an intriguing one is because the Washington Capitals are really, really tight against the cap space. They have $7 million going into this offseason with 17 players on their roster. And this team is in a weird spot because you would think that they should be trying to actually kind of tear things down and rebuild. But as long as Ovechkin's on the roster, they're going to try to win games and try to, be a contender. And they need to try to create some cap space as much as possible right now, so they can try to add some pieces to around Ovechkin. We know Kuznetsov is definitely on the trade market, but with his 2 years at $7.8 million left and his off the ice issues, as we will just kind of keep it to that, he with also a modified no trade clause for him, he is going to be a little bit tougher to move this off season. And especially, I don't think a team right now is looking to take on that $7.8 million. Now, Mantha is a little bit younger, 1 year left on his $5.7 million deal. I think he is a more attractive option for a team. So last season he had 67 games. He played 11 goals, 16 assists, 119 shots on goal, average ice time 14-13, Corsi for 52.08, 46.67 goals for. And Mantha has been a productive forward in the past, but after getting traded from Detroit to Washington in the 2020 bubble season, he really, really saw his production go down. He was, has in the 18-19 season for Detroit, he had scored 20 goals in both those seasons, and then his production has just, steadily gone down, and his ice time has steadily gone down too as well. Looking at his fancy stats, They're okay. So he basically played between a second and first line role last year. So top 6 role, 63rd percentile overall, 26th percentile offensively, 92nd percentile defensively. So, does that, he's, going to be good at limiting goals out there. Power play, did play kind of power play 2 minutes, so would be potentially another body for the Sharks on the power play 2. You're not getting anything out of him shorthanded. Does a good job of not taking penalties. So then he kind of fits. I mean, he's also 6'5", so I think that kind of fits the Mike Grier, what Mike Grier is looking for. I'm joking. But I think a guy like Mantha, though, the Caps are going to be desperate to get off this contract, right? They're looking to trying to create as much free cap space to allow them to be a little bit more aggressive this offseason, to continue to slap together a team around Ovechkin as he chases Gretzky's, the goals scored record, and trying to be competitive in Ovechkin's kind of twilight years here. So this feels like a team that could be desperate to move off of the contract. And I think if you're the Sharks, especially if you're willing to eat the entire contract, you might be able to get them to pay something for him. So, in terms of kind of just trade ideas in my head, especially for the Caps, they have this year, they have a 2nd round pick. They don't have a 3rd, and they have a 4th. Maybe it's something where you do a pick swap. So like the Sharks get the Caps 2nd round pick. Maybe they give up one of their 4th or 5th round picks back to them, and then maybe they send a smaller contract player over there with somebody who kind of cost controlled and has more of a role, right? You're going to hear Noah Gregor's name a lot today, but Noah Gregor type of player, right? Who is an RFA. He's probably going to make about $1 million next year. But he has a defined role on a team as like an energy 3rd line forward who can, when he hits the net, can score occasionally for you. But, somebody like that, right? Who would be a good fit for Washington, who kind of, needs to help kind of fill out the rest of their forward roster. What if it's something like that, right? Where the Sharks are taking back Mantha's contract, giving them a useful player for them, and then getting back a 2nd round pick, which the Sharks could use in the draft. They could flip it for another player type of thing, type of situation. So that is just kind of one of those type of feels where kind of a win-win for everybody, right? Where, and again, the Sharks have $14 million in cap space this offseason, and it's 1 year of Mantha, and you can, especially now, if he plays well, right? You flip him at the trade deadline. Maybe, if he can find his scoring touch again this season, he would get plenty of opportunity to play in the top 6, put him on a Couture line, if you want to put him on the top line, whatever you want to do with Mantha, he's going to get plenty of run, would get an opportunity of plenty of run this. And if he can, maybe he finds the scoring touch again this year, at the deadline, you hold on, you can flip at the deadline, you eat half the contract and you get something else out of it as well. So that's how you're looking at this. As Mantha is a 1 year kind of rental, and you kind of see what happens. And if he doesn't play well, you just don't re-sign him at the end of the season. Or if you do re-sign him, it's nowhere near the 5.7 if you bring him back for, $2 million or something like that type of situation. It just kind of, he's in the house, and if he likes it in San Jose and is willing to sign a cheaper contract, again, depending on how he plays. But it's just more asset management. It gives you a valuable asset that you can do something else with, and later down the road. And that is what Mike Grier should be doing, right? Is flipping all those acorns, trying to take on other teams' bad contracts, either to get paid for them or to turn them into something else later on. So before we continue with 2 guys one guy up in Calgary, and then another one in Edmonton, trying to acquire them potentially on the cheap. Do need to take a quick break. Talk to you guys about our good friends at eBay Motors. And For a championship team, it's all about making sure that every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, just head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can make sure that every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to the My Garage and look for the green check to know that the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. With over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. So get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right, so the next guy I want to talk about would be Kailer Yamamoto. So Yamamoto is kind of been one of those guys in Edmonton who's always kind of, you never know type of player. And he doesn't seem to kind of fit with what they are doing. Who knows what, type of thing, especially for, he's always kind of, him and Puljujarvi have always been kind of the goats of why things go wrong, of course, right? And never kind of fitting in with them. So Yamamoto, I think, is a really intriguing player for the Sharks to add because, one, he's still like super young. Yamamoto's going to be 25 by the time the season starts. He has 1 year left on his $3.1 million contract. Why it makes sense for the Oilers to get rid of him. The Oilers have they have $5 million, a little under $6 million in cap space going into next year. And they have 8 forwards on the roster, including Yamamoto. And there's talk of them potentially, swinging big for this offseason, whether it's an Erik Karlsson trade or whatever, they're going to try to do to get Connor McDavid a cup before he demands a trade. I'm joking. Or am I? Anyway, so Kailer Yamamoto, 58 games last year, did have 10 goals, 15 assists, 97 shots on goal, plays 16:35 time on ice. Corsi for is 52.92, goals for 57.14. So, again, he plays with Connor McDavid a lot. So those numbers, the Corsi for and the goals for, are going to be inflated by playing with Connor McDavid because Connor McDavid's very good at hockey. There was some issues with Yamamoto, especially injury-wise. That's why he missed the beginning of the season. He was having something that made him kind of almost feel like he was having concussion-like syndrome or symptoms after during his off season. So there is that you have to worry about, potentially the injury risk for a guy, especially because he's 5'8", 160 pounds type of situation. But he has, other than last year, for the most part, been pretty durable. He played 52 out of 56 games in the bubble season. He played 81 out of 82 games the year before. And then I think he got hurt in the playoffs and kind of dealt with some of those symptoms all summer. But, he's also been a 20-goal scorer. Again, playing with McDavid doesn't hurt type of situation. And I think he's just a good player who, if he's maybe not under the scrutiny of Edmonton, come to the nice, safe San Jose, you could be getting a type of player here. So looking at his fantasy stats, 62 percentile offensively, 60 percentile overall, 51st percentile offensively, 75 percentile defensively. He is a right-handed shot, which the Sharks do need. Plays on the penalty kill, which is something you wouldn't expect for somebody of his stature. And he played basically PK1 minutes for Edmonton last season. Could be another potential power play guy. Does a good job of drawing penalties and maybe takes a couple more penalties than you would like type of situation. But I know he's only 5'8", but you're getting someone who is a skilled penalty killer instead of just a penalty killer type of situation. So again, the cost is going to, who knows, type of situation. But again, Edmonton is looking to dump contracts, and you could either get them really cheap, maybe you sling again. The Sharks have 12 picks in this draft, so they have plenty of ammunition to kind of send some of these guys off. And again, maybe it's one of your 4th or 5th round picks, or maybe that the end of the 3rd round pick, where you're just like, hey, here's something for them, or a cheap contract type. We know. Again, Noah Gregor from the Edmonton area. We'll give you Noah Gregor, who gives basically, can help out your penalty kill, can, exactly, perfect 3rd line forward type of guy. And he's going to cost a 1/3 of the amount type of situation. So maybe it's one of those type of things, but, I think Yamamoto is a good gamble for the Sharks, where he could help provide some offense for them this year. And he does other stuff for them. Again, plays on the penalty kill. He can play on the power play. And 3.1, again, 1 year of it type of situation. So kind of like we talked about with Mantha, gives you some flexibility going forward. Trade him at the trade deadline. Do whatever you want after the season with him type of situation. So, and again, he's still only 25, or he'll be 25. What did I say? 25 at the beginning of the season. So he's just still figuring, getting to that sweet spot right now. So the next guy on the list is goalie Dan Vladar. So Vladar is a big goalie, 6'5", 209 pound, playing for the Calgary Flames. So the Flames also in a tough spot. So they have a little over $1 million heading into this offseason in cap space, with 18 players on their roster. Vladar has 2 years left at $2.2 million on his contract. So this is another one of those situations where I feel like you could get him on the cheap, because they have Markstrom, who they're paying a lot of money to, and then they have Dustin Wolf, who should be in the NHL and will be in the NHL next year. So Vladar last season didn't have the greatest season, and that's been kind of his thing. He's really struggled with consistency. So he's played 27 games last year, had .894 save percentage, 287 goals against. Goals allowed was 71. Expected goals against was 63. So his goals saved above expected was minus 8.3. Nice high danger save of 741. Looking at his fancy stats, not that great. The team played well in front of him for the most part, and he didn't help out his team type of situation. So the reason why I'm still would be okay at potentially adding a guy like Vladar is because, again, he's really young, right? He's played 20, or he'll be 26 basically by the time the season has started, but he's only played 55 NHL games as a goalie, so he's played 27 games last year. He played 23 games the year before, and then he played 5 games for Boston in the weird bubble season, right? I'd still, in your quest to try to find the goalie, you keep taking swings, right? And 2 years at 2.2, if he's bad, guess what? It's just going to help you be a bad team and get a top 5 pick. If he's good, then you might have found it at least in their potential answer at goaltending. What it would cost to acquire him, who knows with goalie trades, right? Goalie trades are really, really weird, but I would sling like a 5th round pick and see if that could do. Be like, hey, Calgary, I know you guys are in a tough spot. You got Dustin Wolf coming up. We'll give you a 5th round pick. We'll take Vladar back, type of situation. So, and again, and just kind of roll with Vladar. And then if you want to roll with Vladar, Kakinen, you're probably on your way to kind of what we saw last year of bad goaltending taking you out of a lot of potential games type of situation. So, again, or if he plays well, then you might have found an answer at goaltending. So worth a gamble. He's still young. He's only played 55 games type of situation. So who knows? But I would definitely take a swing. So Before we get into the last guy, and a guy who I think is a potential piece for the Sharks, and this is a guy who I would trade for because I think he could be part of the solution for the Sharks. Do want to take a quick break, and thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen, proudly a part of the Locked On Network. And if you want to become an everydayer, all you gotta do is just come back tomorrow. We're going to be another draft profile, Tom Willander. So really intriguing defenseman who stock might be rising where the Sharks may not get him, but you never know with the draft how it's going to kind of shake out. So draft profile of Tom Willander on tomorrow's show. So just make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. All right, the last guy, this guy is a little bit different situation because I think he is kind of he's kind of losing his spot at least, or at least maybe losing favor. And that is one Nils Hoglander. So Hoglander is actually an RFA for the Vancouver Canucks. He last year didn't really play enough games to kind of qualify for his fancy stats. So no fancy stats for him from last year, but I'll show you his runs from his rookie season here in a minute. So he's an RFA. He played 25 games last year with the Canucks. He had 3 goals, 6 assists, 29 shots on goal, 1203 time on ice, Corsi for 48.58, goals for 44.83. And he's a guy who is actually so if you look at his games played, like as a rookie, 19-year-old rookie or 20, he's either 19 or 20, basically 56 games in the bubble season, had 13 goals, 14 assists, 27 points. So he actually played most of his games in the AHL last year. He played 45 games in the AHL, 14 goals, 18 assists, 32 points. And then he also had 6 points in 6 playoff games for the Abbotsford Canucks. He's 22. Basically he's 22. He'll be 23 at the end of the year. I know he's 5'9", 185 pounds. So at least he's a little bit stocky, type of situation, but he just seems to be falling out of favor for the Vancouver Canucks right now. And this could be an opportunity to pounce if you are the Sharks and get another kind of potentially skilled player. Looking at his fancy, like I said, from his rookie season, he was an 83rd percentile player playing first line minutes, 82 percentile offense, and 50th percentile defense. So didn't really help too much on the power play. Didn't play shorthanded, played 3 minutes of shorthanded all season type of thing. But he is a potential offensive diamond in the rough for the Sharks. Former second round pick, who is clearly fallen out of favor in Calgary because he's just not playing in Calgary. And Calgary is in a tough spot when it comes to cap space because they have none. They're over the cap going into this offseason. And Hoglander, according to Evolving Hockey, is projected to get a 2-year, basically 2 years at $1.5 million contract, which the Sharks can easily afford, right? This could be an opportunity to hurt a rival and help yourself as the Canucks are in a tough spot. I know they're probably going to try to trade away, whomever they try to trade away, right? What if it's a JT Miller, or I think that's the big one, right? Is trying to trade away JT Miller, or they could potentially trade away Connor Garland or Tyler Meyer. Like they have some guys that are going to try to trade away, but are we sure that they still love Nils Hoglander, especially with the amount of time he didn't play last year? And we know the Canucks development system is not that great, as we've seen plenty of guys who had to play and we've just seen their development system not be the greatest. Point to plenty of Canucks prospects. Who knows if they trade away some of those guys and they want to keep Hoglander around as a potential piece of the future for him. And I know they added a lot of pieces last year, and there may just not have been enough room for Hoglander in the NHL. But how does the guy go from basically, playing every game to playing 25 games a season this year for you? Again, I know that they added some players this offseason to try to help them win now. I think he is definitely worth a gamble, especially a 22-year-old forward who has shown that he can light the lamp and that's what the Sharks need, right? They need guys who can score. I know the size thing, but I think he plays bigger than he actually is, and I think he could be a worthy gamble for the Sharks. What you have to give up, I have no idea, to be honest. Maybe it's one of those like RFA for RFA type of deals where we'll just swap you RFA players, and everyone can kind of figure it out. Maybe new scenery for everybody works out type of thing. So type of situations, or maybe you throw in like a third or fourth round pick, right? You have type of for a guy who again was a second round pick a couple of years ago. So we'll see. Yeah, I think Mantha though, because you could probably get something real back for him type of situation makes a lot of sense. Yamamoto could be one of those where I've seen a trade I saw, I think on Bleacher Report, was Carlson for Yamamoto. Skinner's got like 4 years at $5 million, and then like a first round pick to help trying to make the contracts match, or at least make it easier for Edmonton, something like that. Vladar, I think, is going to be widely available, and so you can probably get him really cheaply again because you have Markstrom and you have Dustin Wolf, and Dustin Wolf deserves to be in the NHL. He is very good and going to be very good. He needs to start getting NHL time. And again, Hoglander, who knows where he stands with the Canucks right now? So that's kind of, those are the reasoning behind all those guys. All right, so that's going to do it for today's episode. We'll be back tomorrow. Like I said, Tom Willander profile, new someone making their Locked On Sharks debut. He's a Ducks fan, but we won't hold it against him. So we have, his name is Patrick Present. He's going to be on to discuss Willander and kind of, again, another one of those defensemen that's going to be in the mix at the end of the first round. Potentially, he might be kind of moving up the boards a little bit here, but so we're going to discuss him. Plenty of draft profiles coming later this week, and trying to get a very special guest at the end of the week. So again, make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch this on YouTube as well. You can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. You can follow me on Twitter at MyFryhole. And until tomorrow, bye, friends.